Hi guys, it's Tamara. Welcome back to my channel. We're going to go ahead and start our new topic, which is juvenile sex offenders. I think this is going to be a proper and in place video for the simple fact that we've been talking about personality disorders. We've been talking about narcissism, narcissistic communication. We've been talking about stalkers and how to deal with them. So now we're going to throw in this monkey wrench of juvenile sex offenders. And one of the reasons I call it a monkey wrench is because a lot of people conceptualize juveniles to be innocent, right? They're kids, they make mistakes, life goes on. But it's kind of shocking to hear that a juvenile would perpetrate against someone. So we're going to just jump right on in. This is going to be a pretty short video for you guys. The benefits for you in this video is that you're going to learn about juvenile sex offenders. You're also going to be able to learn a little bit about the laws and how we deal with and rehabilitate those kind of youths. And I want to teach you the lingo as well. Thank you so much for coming back to my channel, those of you who are subscribed. And those of you who are not subscribed, I encourage you, to go ahead and hit that subscribe button so then that way you can stick around with me with these videos. If you haven't seen my New Year's video, I'm going to post it up here. That way you can go back, scroll. If you don't want to watch the whole video, scroll to the end of the video and look at the listing of topics that we're going to be talking about this year. And that's just a couple topics, so there's more to come. Let's jump in. So when you think of juveniles, what do you think of? Do you think of innocent kids? Do you think of kids who just kind of steal from a candy store, kids who are oppositional, kids who may drive and steal their parents' car, right? Is that what you think of? Because if so, you're not alone. There's a lot of adults who struggle with the reality that sex offenders can actually be under the age of 18. I don't have a lot of knowledge on the laws across the nation, but I do have knowledge on the laws in Pennsylvania, Virginia, Ohio, New York, and Arizona. And my understanding of those states is that anytime a juvenile under the age of 18 sexually perpetrates or molests or violates or offends a young person who is also a minor, they could face up to 5 years probation or prison time, and they can also face having to register on Megan's list or some kind of list that keeps the community aware that they have a sex offender in their community or neighborhood. I've had a lot of kids who have had these kind of situations in their lives. Before I started out in private practice, I worked in what's called a residential treatment facility. And that's a place where the kids go for counseling, education, medication, and rehabilitation. And they actually live on a campus-like place. They live in a campus-like place, and what you'll see on those campuses are doctors, staff, and therapists. You will also see teachers as well, because the kids have to go to school on the premises. So in those particular units, I had, where I was working, I had a family that I had been seeing, and her daughter had been admitted to the sex offender residential unit. She had violated 12 of her siblings. Mom decided to be brave and have 5 kids of her own, and then the others were adopted. And so she had 12 in the home. Well, this young lady sexually violated each one. She watched porn on her computer and on her iPad. She also watched it at school on her computer. And she was becoming addicted to watching this almost every day at school and on her iPad and her computer. And she became so engulfed in it. She was 14, by the way. She became so engulfed in it that she decided to perpetrate on her siblings and have them perform sexual acts on each other. It was the most devastating case that I had ever worked with, and I just wasn't prepared for what I had to deal with. I had to deal with lawyers, courts, juvenile courts, laws, regulations, mental health, staffing issues, the list goes on. It was devastating. So I learned in that case that juveniles can sexually offend. A lot of times they don't get reported. Those cases don't get reported. And my understanding is that it's for 2 reasons. One is because the family either covers it up or acts like it doesn't happen. And two, there is favoritism in the system where kids of a certain race or of a certain age have charges dropped against them. And so nothing gets completed. For the kids who do get stuck with these crimes, the court system is absolutely punitive, right? It punishes you to the fullest extent of the law. My understanding of the laws in Arizona, for example, is that juvenile sex offenders are treated very similarly to adult sex offenders, meaning that they are often incarcerated, placed on probation, for 5 years or more. They are made to register for either a certain amount of years or for a permanent amount of time. These individuals also have a hard time getting this stuff expunged from their record. Whatever happened in adolescence or childhood is going to follow them into adulthood. Now, there are some states who are rehabilitative, and Pennsylvania and Ohio are one of those states. And they don't make kids register. They also don't hold them for 5 years. And for the most part, they look to place them in a treatment program to prevent further perpetration or perpetrating as they grow older. It's a very devastating court system for juveniles. The most, I think, important thing with this topic to consider is that juvenile sex offenders often have issues of their own, right? They've either been sexually offended by somebody that they know. It typically happens with a family member or a friend, rarely with a stranger. Or they have had some kind of trauma in their life that has led them to act out in this fashion. So it's often a very complicated picture. I try to get families, court systems, and other psychologists and therapists to understand from a trauma perspective that these kids are often perpetrated against, harmed or abused or traumatized themselves, and they take that and they go and harm and traumatize somebody else. There are situations, however, where sexual abuse or trauma or any other form of abuse did not happen, and yet they still perpetrate against a sibling or a cousin or someone that they know. That's likely to happen as well. Now, when I talk to families about juvenile sex offenders who really could care less about harming the person that they harmed, I try to help them understand that there's a spectrum of illnesses that can explain the behavior, all right? And I'm going to write this out for you, okay? Okay, and we're doing pretty good, guys. I want to keep this video at least under 10 minutes. That's my goal this year. So let me write this out for you. And I don't have a marker. So I often tell parents that on the far left is ADHD. In the middle is ODD, which is oppositional defiant disorder. Okay. And then at the end is conduct disorder. All right. And this is how I help parents conceptualize it. Okay. So as you can see, there is conduct disorder on the far right. In the middle, there's oppositional defiant disorder. And then on this side, there's ADHD. Okay, if you can see that. And the way I conceptualize this is this way. And I'll post a picture of it over here. Kids who have ADHD are impulsive, extraordinarily impulsive, right? Not all kids, but some. They have an underdeveloped prefrontal cortex. I'm going to post a video up here about the neuroscience of personality disorders so that you could see that video if you missed it. But the prefrontal cortex is behind the forehead. It has a lot to do with impulse control. Kids who have ADHD, not all but some, have poor impulse control. Okay? We'll keep that there. In the middle, we have oppositional defiant disorder. Oppositional defiant disorder. We have that, okay? And the whole idea there is that kids are oppositional for the simple fact that it gives them pleasure. They like being oppositional. On the far right is conduct disorder, and that's the kids who set fires and they sexually offend and they rob and they steal cars and they burglarize and they carry weapons and they get into fights. They're in gangs, right? Conduct disorder. When you look on that scale, okay, the further along to the right side the kid goes on that scale to conduct disorder, the worse the behavior. Kids who sexually offend are often in the middle, oppositional defiant disorder, or they're often on conduct disorder side of things. and it's devastating. We're going to talk more about this in the upcoming video, guys. Thank you so much for being with me today. I encourage you to give this video a thumbs up if it was helpful to you. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you can stick around for video number 2 on this topic. But in the meantime, I wish you well, and I will see you really soon. Bye-bye.